So we are going to start lying down, but if you've just gotten in, so from back here, I can't see necessarily what's going on if you're just coming in, if you're lying down, but just know during the practice, there are some props and some optional props that will be drafted into service. A yoga blanket or 2 towels. We'll be doing a little back bend later, and I'll talk more about that when we're getting up there. But and if nothing else, 2 bed pillows will work just fabulously. And also 2 blocks or 2 same size books. Those aren't required, but they're an optional piece, and a strap or a tie. And with all that being said, so if you want to get something now rather than later, feel free to do that. But when you're ready, you're going to come to lying down comfortably on your mat with whatever you need and without what you don't need. So if you just want to splay on your mat with no props, kind of bare bones, feel free to do that. Or you could tuck something under your legs or tuck something under your head. And just use these few moments to notice and assess and see where you are. And a little bit of the theme, so to speak, for the practice this evening, it's a little bit inspired by snow and the activities we might be stuck doing, whether it's shoveling or like taking these really careful steps. So we'll be doing some stretching in the hips, legs, and arms. Please remember to modify as needed. Don't go to your end range. Even if you don't have any injury, a lot of times it's like, oh, I can stretch this far, and then you've gone too far. So just be mindful of anything going on in your body, because we want you to feel better at the end of the practice, or at the least good, definitely not worse. So just take a few more moments here to settle in, to get comfortable, to get a sense what's going on in your body. And then when you're ready, we're going to start moving with some really slow, gentle stretches, extending legs and arms. And I'm going to talk you through that. I don't think you really need to see it. And I don't think you will be able to see it when you're lying on the mat. So lie on the mat with your knees bent, your feet light on the floor, head either lifted up on a blanket if you need it or not, and your arms by your side. And I'm going to start with the legs. So take one leg, take your right leg, stretch your right leg out on the mat and make it perky. So when you first take the leg out, maybe I will just do this for folks coming in, they might not know what's going on. So take the right leg out and keep it energized enough so that the ankle has a small flex to it and the knee is roughly pointing up to the ceiling, and just notice the length there in your leg, and then let the leg go soft. Let go of any muscular action, and chances are the leg will flop over to the right like a fish, which is fine. So, but we want to make sure for what we're going to do, we have the active leg. Bring the right leg back in and do the same with your left leg. Extend it out straight if you can, heel down. The knee can be bent. The right leg's just hanging out now, and take that left leg, make it active, reaching through the heel, opening up the front hip, and then let the leg go floppy so you can see the difference between floppy and alert, and then bring the legs back in. Now let's come to the upper limbs. Let's come to the arms. Take your arms down by your side and spin the palms so they're facing the hip. So the pinky edge of your finger is down on the mat and the thumb is looking toward the ceiling. Leave your left arm where it is, but just raise your right arm up toward the shoulder. If you have an injury, so Joanne, maybe even coming up to the shoulder is too much. So just raise your arm up to the shoulder for now. See how that feels. Lengthen the arm from elbow crease to fingertips, but try and keep the upper arm a little weighted down to the mat. So we're not trying to pull the arm out of the socket. And then if it feels okay, you could start increasing the stretch. You could increase it by taking the arm back down to the floor behind you. But for this first one, don't go as far as you can go. Almost never go as far as you can go. Just see what range of motion you have there. Bring the arm down and then do the same with the left. Extend it up slowly, maybe up to the height of your shoulders, which since you're lying down, the fingers would be looking up toward the ceiling. Relax the upper arm a little bit, but let the lower arm be nice and zesty. Lower the arm if you need to. However, if you feel that maybe you can stretch it further, go a little further with that left arm and just pause when you need to. Try keep the arm straight. Try not to bend the elbow. And then bring that left arm down. So now we're going to alternate. I'll do a few with you, but you're going to go at your own pace. We're going to lengthen one leg and the opposite arm to stretch the limbs. This also helps to stretch the back and to maybe give a little length diagonally across the torso. So let's start with the right leg, flex the ankle. Left arm can be reaching toward the ceiling or it can be back behind you. Just find length and reach between the two, definitely with no pain, no forcing. Inhale, and as you exhale, bend right knee, right foot down, left arm down. Get the left leg out, take your time, add the right arm, find a comfortable, sustainable stretch, take a breath there. Both limbs active, neither forcing. And then as you exhale, bring the arm by your side and bend the knee. And we'll do, let's say, 2 more sets, but go at your own pace. Right leg, left arm, extend them long away from each other. Take a breath here. Inhale. On an exhale, draw your core in a little bit and bring the foot down, bring the arm down. And then left arm, left leg, right arm, extend away from each other. Stretch your leg from below the knee to the ankle. And stretch your arm from below the elbow toward the fingertips. So find the length in the lower part of your limbs. As you exhale, bring that down. Rest here or do one more set. Extend your left arm and your right leg. And remember, you could be anywhere along that pathway. Exhale, bring the limbs back to the start position. And last time, I believe right arm, left leg here. So just make sure you're doing the opposite arm to the leg that's reaching out. Good. And then bring the limbs back in and just pause here. The next thing we're going to do is just some little bit of bridging. And if bridging doesn't work for you, you can continue doing those stretches on the back. So have your knees parallel and your feet light on the mat. If you wish, if you feel you want to have a little more support to keep the thighs the same distance apart, you can take a yoga block or a small light pillow, place it in between your thighs just to keep the legs active enough so that the knees don't wobble out to the side. And let's take your arms into a 90-degree angle for robot arms and just kind of gently snuggle the backs of your arms down. You should feel broad in the front and the back. Fingertips energized. Try and line up your wrists roughly with your elbows. Find the outer and inner edges of your right and left foot. And as you inhale, press the feet down and lift up into a small bridge. If you feel like your low back is arching a lot, if your tush is really lagging, take a little tuck, take the pubic bone up toward the belly button a little bit to make sure you're not overarching your low back. And as you exhale, lower down. Let the weight completely surrender to gravity and do that again. Inhale, lift the hips up into bridge. And exhale, take the hips down. Pause here, take a full breath. The next time you lift up, I'm going to invite you to hold for a breath. So inhale, lift up into bridge pose. Feel the outer edges and inner edges of your feet. Might be longer than one breath while I'm gabbing. Reach underneath you and tap the lowest part of your butt. Just give a little tap there. And you don't have to squeeze the whole butt so like you're grimacing, your butt's doing all this work, but you do want to have those lower fibers of your bottom working. Good. And then exhale and bring that down. Rest your hands on your belly and pause. We're going to do one more variation, same pose, but instead of lifting up and coming down, we're going to lower a little bit and come back up. If this feels unpleasant in any way, you could just rest, or you could just stay in bridge the whole time if you like to hold the pose a little bit longer. Find the outer edges and inner edges of your feet. Anchor those down. Fire up the legs. The backs of the legs take the hips take the bottom takes the back. You don't have to be in your highest bridge. Inhale here, and as you exhale, come down just an inch down from wherever you are. And inhale, lift back up again. Keep the hips even. Notice if one wants to drift down to the floor. Exhale, come down just a little bit. Tuck your pelvis if you feel like this arches your low back. And press the inner edges of the feet down, lift up again. Exhale, and just kind of tap, come a little bit lower, and lift up. And one more time, lower a little bit, and lift a little bit. And this time, stay here. If you've had enough, more than enough is too much, you could take your arms out in a different position if you like. If you're happy and you know it, stay in bridge. And then when you're ready, lower everything down, toe heel your feet wide, and rest your knees in toward each other, and take a few breaths here. And then when you're ready, we're going to come to sitting. So come over to your side, pause, take as much time as you need to. Come up to your seated position. I think one or two of you came in since we started. So if you need props, go get them. If you need to have a blanket to sit on, you definitely want to have that handy. And if you need water to sip, make sure you have all that. So sit cross-legged unless cross legs is not comfortable for you. So you can sit any way you like. And bring your right leg in front, just so we make sure that we alternate. So your right leg in front, take your arms out to the side in an A-frame. Reach your arms long, sit nice and tall here. Chin parallel to the floor. So just take a moment. We were on the back a little bit. So just come back to getting a sense of what it feels to be upright. Good. And then with your right leg in front, remember, we're going to do some arm crosses. So the right arm is going to be on the bottom. And if you get mixed up, it's not a huge deal. Sometimes I get mixed up, but we want to try and do these things on both sides. So from here, take your arms out to the side, bend your elbows, bring your arms forward, straighten the arms out in front of you. Now crisscross your right arm on top of the left. It could be at the wrists, it could be at the elbows, but just find a little bit of a crisscross. And then from there, lift your arms up just a little bit and bend the elbows. And then open your arms, sweep them out to the side. Do that again. Take the arms into right angles. Straighten the arms, then you're going to crisscross them with the right arm below. Take the right arm underneath. Again, you could just cross at the wrist. You could bend the arms slightly and keep them here. You can cross at the forearms, or you can cross at the elbows, and then you're going to bend the arms up a little bit. And then you're going to unwind the arms and take them out to the side. One more time, bring the arms in this right angle. Stretch your arms forward. Crisscross them with the right arm underneath, and you can go as high or as low as you like, and pause in the cross without bending the elbows. So we want to invite the upper back to broaden and the shoulder blades to move away from the spine here to get a nice, comfortable stretch. We don't want to pull anything. If it feels okay, again, you can bend your elbows. I'm going to do a full tuck of bringing my right arm fully underneath my left, and you could just press the backs of your hands together. It's various variations of eagle arms. Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, unwind your arms and just float the arms a little bit. So fly your wings a little bit, bring them down to the sides of you, and change the cross of your legs. Actually, before we do that, before we bring the left leg in front, because we were sitting a long time there, just take your legs out in front of you, roll them out and in a few times, or keep them still and point and flex the ankles, whatever feels good. You can even give them a little tap, and then crisscross your legs with your left arm, either, depending on how you sit, the left arm is on front, your left leg is in front or on top, which means your left arm is going to be on the bottom. So take your arms out into cactus. You might find that I just move the arms a little differently, but we're going to end up in the same place every time. Bring the arms forward, stretch out the arms, crisscross, either taking the crisscross at the wrist or the forearm. So find a nice stretch in the upper back. And then if it feels okay, bend the elbows. And then just take your arms open into cactus. Good. Bring the arms to right angles looking at each other. Stretch the arms long, crisscross, ankle, forearm, or above the elbow. Left arm underneath. You could keep them straight or you can bend them. And then unwind your arms. Let's take them out to the side this time. Just stretch them out long. One more time. Bring the arms forward and crisscross them. You can bend the arms first, or you could, if you know you're going to crisscross high up on the arm, you could bend them. If it's going to be but down by the forearms or the wrists, you're just going to go like that. That's how it looks from the front. You're just going to find a nice crisscross, a comfortable crisscross. Bend the elbows if you like. If you're doing a full cross with the elbows kind of spiral around each other, you could bring the backs of the arms to each other. Relax your wrists. And again, the main thing we're doing here is stretching the arms, stretching the upper arm safely. Make sure this isn't bothering you, and getting a nice spaciousness in the upper back. Make sure there's no pain in the neck. Make sure this pose is not a pain in the neck, literally. And then from here, take your arms wide again and stretch your legs out again. And just pause. You could just sit with the legs straight after having them bent, or you can flap them a little bit, or you can tap them a little bit, or you could circle your ankles, or you could do a little bit each one of those things. And then we're going to switch to coming to all fours. So if you need a little padding under your knees, take a blanket or towel underneath your knees and come to tabletop position. And just a reminder here, if you, we're going to be doing variations of cat-cow, the familiar cat-cow, which is fantastic to do, but not so great to do if you've been told you have osteoporosis. You've probably heard me say this a million times, some of you, and it's like, yeah, that again. But you could start doing some cat-cows, arching the back gently and coming to this big forward bend. But if you have osteoporosis, instead of this forward variation, this forward bend variation, after you back bend, you're going to exhale, come to neutral spine and slide your hips back to your heels. You can come up onto your fingertips, or here's where you can use blocks. You could also do this with your hands a little lifted to minimize rounding in your upper back if that's an issue for you. So just move back and forth, standard cat-cow or the modified cat-cow. Just find a rhythm that works for you, nice and easy. If you're doing the version where you take your hips back, that does put more pressure on your knees. So make sure you don't bring your hips back so far that your knees are very unhappy. Good, good, good. The next time you exhale into the forward bend of your choice, traditional angry kitty or a more longer variation, pause there. And then as you inhale, palms down, come back forward. And as you exhale, take that little small back bend here and look to your right, turn your head and wag your tail to the right. So you're just shifting your hips slightly to the side you're looking toward. We're not leaning toward the side at all. And then let's inhale back to center. Exhale, neutral spine, turn your head to the left. See how the neck turns feel today. And shift your hips a smidgen toward the left. So it's like you're wagging your tail, or you're not really wagging it, because wagging would go back and forth, right? You wag it there and you keep it there. You could tell I don't have a dog. And as you inhale, come back to your back bend. Now you continue doing cat-cow. If down dog is in your practice and you'd like to toss one in, now is a good time. Speaking of wagging, so you may want to stretch your limbs and your back in one downward facing dog, tuck your toes under, lift up and back, surrender the crown of your head to gravity. Take a few breaths here, nice and easy. And then when you're ready, down doggers, soften your knees back down to the mat. And let's come to sitting again. Let's see what else we can do sitting. So come to a comfortable seat again, take padding underneath you and just sit in a way that's comfortable. I automatically come to cross-legged position, but you don't have to do that. We're just going to do a few more arm stretches here and a twist, maybe a side bend. So start with, let's just start with, if your legs are crisscrossed, bring your right leg in front. So we just make sure we address both sides. Take the arms out to the side in an A-frame so that you feel that the arms are straight and have some reach to them. Unless you have an injury, then this might not feel quite so good. So this is going to lengthen not necessarily the muscles in the arms, but the fascial tissue in the arms. So stretch both arms long. tilt your chin up just a fraction, as if you were just wanted to look up a little higher. So you had to lift your head up a little bit. And then find a little more reach through your right arm as you turn your head a fraction to your left. So turning your head might amplify the feeling of lengthening in the tissue, in the connective tissue on the right side. And then release that stretch. Now from here, let's twist to the right side. So inhale both arms up. And as you exhale, wrap your torso to your right and take your arms down comfortably wherever they land. Make sure your sitting bones are even, that you're not lifted up or tipping toward the side we're twisting to. Bring your awareness to your upper back. Relax your shoulders and take a full but not forced breath into the upper back, feeling the expansion of the back. On your next inhale, slowly unwind your spine. Come back to the start position. Now let's change legs. So just to switch it up a little bit, you can also change the way you're sitting altogether. You could do this sitting in a chair. So if you're sitting cross-legged, put the left leg in front now. And then let's just come back to that arm lengthener. So stretch your arms out. Make sure you don't feel like you're yanking the arms out of the shoulders. Reach the arms long. Tip the chin up slightly. Lengthen your, just bring a little more sense of length to your left arm so it's really active. And then turn your head to your right. So you're turning the head away from the arm that you're reaching forward, reaching with a little more energetically. Notice if you feel any deepening of the sensation of length. Good. And then bring the head back to center. And now we're going to twist to that second side. Inhale the arms up, exhale from that nice open chest you have and the nice open back, take a small twist to your left and make sure you're not pulling with the arms or twisting further. If you feel like you're yanking or pulling, you're yanking or pulling. So your twist might be really itty bitty or a little bigger. Make sure your sitting bones are even. Again, bring your awareness to the back and see if some of that arm stuff we were doing has given you a sense of a little more freedom in your back, a little more width in your back, maybe a little more ease in the back. And when you're ready, inhale. Come out of the twist, take the arms down. You can switch your legs again if you like. You can keep on switching. We're just going to do one little side bend on each side before we move on. So I went back to my right leg in front. Take the opposite arm up, inhale, and as you exhale, take a small side bend to your right. So try and make the side bend long. So we're not trying to curl the shoulder toward the hip. So we're just really more like a lean. And you can keep the arm up. If your arm is tired, you can rest it down in any way that you like, and you can turn your gaze down. Just make sure you're not feeling any cramping or overly condensed on your bottom side. That would be your right side here. And then as you inhale, breathe back up, fan your arms wide, change your seat, change the cross of your legs, take the right arm up, inhale here, exhale, side bend to your second side, to your left. Your gaze could be down or forward or up. Drop the hips down. Think of your sitting bones anchored downward. So you feel really, really long on both sides. You might feel a little longer on the top side, which would make sense. And then as you inhale, breathe both arms up, join the hands together, slide the hands to the heart. Good. Unwind your legs. Let's come back to tabletop position again. So this time, instead of doing the cat-cows, we'll do some stretches again of the limbs and also adding in some balance challenge. So tuck the toes of the right foot under and stretch your right leg out long. And just pause here. Try and be even on your arms so you're not leaning to one side. And just feel a lot of length in that right leg. It can be helpful to give a little gentle pressing down of the toenails of your other foot. And then bring that right knee down, pause. Anytime you're doing this work on the knees, anytime you need to sit back and roll your wrists around a little bit, take the pressure off your wrists, do that. Second side, extend your left leg back as straight as you can without force. Make sure you're pushing through the big toe side of the foot and the little toe side of the foot to get a lot of nice length here. And notice if one hip feels like it's sagging down. It probably isn't too much here, but try and keep your hips even, your spine long, your gaze neutral. Good. And then bring that left knee down, and let's all roll the wrists around a little bit. One way, but you could do different. I can't do one wrist one way. I have to do the same turns on both sides. Come down again. So we're going to do that same stretch, which you can add a little balance challenge to, or you could just stick with the stretch. So start with the right leg out. You can just hang out right here. This is nice for your leg. If you wish, you can add your left arm. So this is similar to the diagonal stretch we did right in the beginning of class, except our back isn't lying on the floor. So it's a little more challenging. And if this isn't very challenging and you want a little more action, you can raise your right leg up, no higher than your hip. Keep the gaze nice, the neck nice and long. So don't let your head sag down, or don't smush the back of your head to the back of your body. And then bring your limbs down. Before we do the second side, take your knees wide, slide your hips back, rest in child's pose. You can take your hands underneath your head or slide a block or a pillow underneath your head. And here in child's pose, you can notice maybe how broad your back feels, and take a breath into your upper back. Right into the back door of your heart, your back garden. Take a breath there. And then when you're ready, come back to table for the leg stretch and or the balance if you're adding it. So second side, stretch the left leg long. Find evenness across the hips. If you're unstable, which can happen even if you've done this a lot, if you're unstable, maybe you're going to stay here. Make sure that your low back curve feels like your normal curve, that you're not sagging. If you feel like you're sagging and the low back is really sinking down, you can tuck your pelvis a little bit. And then you could reach the opposite arm forward. Similar stretch to what we did on the other side. The bent leg foot can be pressed down to keep you anchored, and you can raise that straight leg up, which can be very challenging some days to do it. Lifting it up isn't the challenge. It's keeping the hips even and making sure that there's not too much weight on the remaining arm. And then bring that hand down, bring that leg down, and yogi's choice. If you'd like to do one more down dog, feel free to tuck your toes under and lift up and back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. While you're doing that, I might come a little closer just to see if there's anything I could suggest here. And if you're not doing that, you can also come to child's pose. Most of you don't have your cameras on, but those of you who do, looks good. Sorry to have my giant face there. So Z, if you have a video of this, make sure you edit out my giant face. So from, if you were in child's pose, you're going to come up to sitting. If you were up and down dog, you're going to come down to sitting. So we did some active stretching in the chest and in the back. So now I'd like to add a restorative pose. We often do a restorative pose in this class to invite opening in the chest more passively, in the sense that we're not creating the opening with movement and with using our muscles. So to do this, the main piece is going to be a folded yoga blanket if you have one. If you don't, I just have two beach towels here, and they're both very different. I'm going to sort of take it apart. So I have it folded so it's fairly narrow. It's like a long rectangle, but it's a little narrower than the widest part of my back. Now, if you don't have towels handy or yoga blankets, and if you could also just take two standard bed pillows and stack them on top of each other. They'll be wider than this, but you should still get some of the feel of the back bend. I'm going to stretch this out on the mat. You could just do one towel, but towels are really, really thin. And I like to have a little more height. And then if you're using towels, they're also very uneven. You can see my towels are completely different. So just take time to kind of slide your hands around. So whatever the surface you're using, whether it's yoga blankets are very fluffy. So if you're using a yoga blanket, some of you might have them. Let me just show you. You would take your yoga blanket and you'd fold it like so. Again, you're going to have this long rectangle shape. Then you can add a few other pieces to this mix. When you come into the pose, you're going to have your hips in front of the prop, whatever you're using to support your back. But this end is going to have your head. Now, depending if you like your head to be a little higher, you may want to have a small decorative pillow or another blanket up here, just so you could add more propping under the head should you need it. I'm going to do the pose tonight with my knees bent and my feet on the floor. But if you want to be super fancy, and if you have a bolster, a yoga bolster or a couch cushion, you can certainly take that at the lower third of your mat and elevate your legs on that. And while I'm at it, one more little piece. If you have two small blankets or towels, you can place them on either side to use as hand rests. But the main thing here, the most important thing that we're doing is a supported back bend, which will stay in for a few minutes if and only if it's comfortable. So I'm just doing very basic propping here. So using things that everyone has at home. So I'm sitting in front of the props, tush on the mat, and they're right behind me here. I'm going to bend my knees, and then you can roll down. You can roll down. I'm going to ease myself down a little bit just to have less rounding. And then when you get down, before you do anything else with your legs, make sure you're comfortable. In particular, your low back curve, your lumbar spine should pretty much rest on the blanket or towel, on the surface of the prop. But since your bottom is going to be lower, there'll be a little slope down of the end of the blanket. And you want to make sure that slope kind of lines up with the back of your hips, the top of the back of your hips. So we don't want to increase the curve of our lumbar spine here. So make sure that's comfortable. You feel like your back is arching, the prop under your back is too high and should be lower. You could take your arms out to the side, and then you could have your add-on. So like, maybe you need a little more height in your head. You can reach for a pillow, have your head a little higher. You can take yoga blocks, or even better, little pillows, and place them on either side of you to rest your hands and forearms on. It sometimes feels nice to have them a little higher. And as I said, I'm going to keep my knees bent here, but to have my legs rested, I'm going to take my feet wide and tip my knees against each other. So my legs are just really comfortable. If you have a bolster handy, you can certainly stretch your legs out on the bolster. I almost never do this pose with my legs stretched out, because for me, I find it tends to arch the back a little bit more, and we don't really want to arch the low back. We want to feel that the chest is lifted and bright without any effort from us, similar to the opening you would get when you're doing a small cobra pose. So again, I'm going to come around and just take a peek a little closer to the camera to see if there's anything, if there's something I think that could be done a little more efficiently. Usually I can't see that much in the small pictures, but make sure you're comfortable. Relax your shoulders, relax your arms, however you place your legs, inner knees together or looped over a prop. Make sure your legs are comfortable and your head is supported enough so that your head at the minimum is just a neutral position, or if you prefer to have the head a little higher, that's okay too. So stay where you are if you're comfortable. I'm just going to come out of the pose, take a little peek. Make sure you're cozy, cozy, cozy. Cozy, cozy, cozy. Can't see too many. Joanne, with your mood lighting, I can't see you. Sue looks good. So just make sure you're comfortable. If you're not, just come out and lie with your back on the mat, which is nice enough. If those of you, if you're still futzing with your props, you'll see that I'm not up real high here. And if I were using 2 bed pillows, I wouldn't be up too high either because my bed pillows are really old and mushy. So while you're in the pose, I'm going to point out just a few things you can look at, in a sense, not with your eyes, but with your mind. So close your eyes. Again, soften your shoulders, invite your back body to surrender downward toward whatever props you're using, towels or pillows, and layer by layer, like the layers of lasagna, invite each layer of you to surrender downward onto the layer beneath it. So everything, in a sense, is resting on that soft cushion that you created that's underneath your back. And then if you like, bring your awareness to your upper chest. You can place a hand there if you like. And again, this is while you're in the back bend. And without force, just take a slightly longer inhale, just a smidgen longer. And feel the chest expand up into your hand or up into the air if you're not using your hand. And as you exhale, surrender that down and let it go. And then if you like, bring your awareness to your upper chest and to your belly, even though this is more about creating a little opening in the chest, bring your awareness to those areas and inhale and see if you can find that your belly and your chest are expanding somewhat at the same time, but don't fret if one expands first. And then as you exhale, let the front of you soften down again, like a nice warm layer of lasagna. And if that little observation was of interest, you can repeat that or just stay lying on your back on this comfortable support underneath you for another breath or two. Another area we could explore here, if you like, is our side body. So you could bring your awareness to your side ribs, your upper side ribs. So we're not in the waistline at all. You could bring your hands there if it's comfortable. And as you inhale, take just a small, a slightly longer inhale, excuse me, not smaller. And just you might feel the ribs expanding outward, right to right, left to left, just a little bit. It's quite subtle. And as you exhale, you might feel almost retracting away from your hands. And then if you like, do that again. Bring your awareness into your right side and your left. Maybe you can bring it like really up into the armpit area. And as you inhale, breathe into your width. And exhale and let that go. If you're comfortable where you are, remain in the back bend for a few more breaths. If your body is not happy here at any time, just ease over to your side and rest on your side. Otherwise, enjoy this back bend for a few more moments to, again, help to open the chest. This is so great if you're congested, to create a little expansion in the chest and the throat. This is very soothing for the back body. It can be very soothing for tired shoulders, for tense shoulders. All yummy. When you're ready to release the pose, if you had your legs looped over a prop, bend them so your feet are definitely on the mat, and then shift your hips slightly over to one side, ease over to the other side. You might end up rolling off the props that you were on, which is fine, but just make sure you have something underneath your head, because when we're lying on our side, we don't want that crunching. So just rest on your side here with your knees bent. If your top leg feels heavy on the bottom leg, if you have a blanket handy, another blanket or towel, you can place it in between the top leg and the bottom. Excuse me, pardon me. That can feel nice. And then whatever side you're on, you're going to stay on that side. We're going to do a little side stretch, a little nice stretch for the hips. Now, if you're a little sensitive, sometimes weight on the bottom hip can be uncomfortable. So if you need to, you want to be comfortable, we're not going to be here long, but if you're uncomfortable, it'll be too long, right? So if you want a little more softness underneath you, and that would be underneath your shoulder too, you can unfold a blanket or towel. I'm laughing because when I did that, I made like a big wind here and like lint flew up. So you can certainly lie on your side on a little more softer surface. Definitely still have something for under your head though. So again, whatever side you're going to come onto first is fine. So I'm taking my hips on the padding and I have padding under my head. So bend the knees and stack your legs on top of each other. The bottom leg is going to stay bent. Now, if it's comfortable for your bottom arm, Joanne, this might not work for you on one side. If it's comfortable or on either side, you can take your arms straight out underneath you. And then you could rest your bottom ear on your arm. For most of us, that's not enough height. So I have a smushed up towel in between my inner arm and my head. Your top arm could go in front of you or rest on your hip or behind you. When you're ready, take the top leg, and stretch it out long with the inner edge of the big toe edge down. So it's a nice stretch for the leg, but it's also a stretch for the top hip. So you're reaching your foot, ankles flex, you're reaching your foot away from that hip. If you want to add a little more stretch, and if this is suitable for your arms, take your top arm, reach it overhead. And then you can circle the wrist of your top arm with your bottom arm. Don't pull, just hold on to keep it steady. I usually hold on to my forearm and just support that top arm as you lengthen from fingertips to the leg. Hopefully it feels good. And we're not lifting the bottom leg up. You could, but then it's less stretchy for the hip and it's more work for your leg. You don't need to work here to get the stretch. Take one more breath here. Make sure, by the way, you're not tipping forward and smushing your chest a little bit. You want to be on your side. And then release your top arm. Place that down. Bend your top leg, pause here. So when you come onto the second side, you can just roll over, or you can change the orientation of your body. If you decided you didn't have padding under your hip and now you're thinking that was a good idea, take a blanket underneath your hip. If the padding didn't do much for you, take it away. Bend your knees, stack your legs comfortably, come to lying down. You can just have your arm underneath you to start with your head on a prop. And if you don't want to do the stretchy part, this could feel nice right here. I just realized, I think, make sure you're not so close to a wall that you can't stretch your top leg out. So then when you're ready, you're going to stretch your top leg out long with the foot down. When I say the foot, it's not the sole of the foot. You're on the inner edge of the foot, mostly on the big toe side. And the leg is reaching long out of the hip. You might feel a stretch in the outer leg and in the outer hip. And you could just stick with that. If it's comfortable for you, you could take your bottom arm and stretch that out underneath you. It's can't really do it here with my earpiece because it'll get knocked out. But you can stretch that arm out, and then you could add the top arm, reach the top arm overhead. It could be straight or bent. And then you could grab the forearm or the wrist of the top arm. And again, you're not pulling it, but you're maybe just encouraging a little more length and reach if it's available to you. And you can experiment. I usually have my foot a little flexed here, but you can experiment with a pointed foot. I get more stretch in the hip with a flexed foot. Make sure you're not smushing your top ear. Keep the breath flowing. And then when you've had enough of the stretch, if you're really happy, if you're happy, you know it, stay here for another breath or two. If you're getting a little tired or this isn't doing as much for you because we don't need to stay in this long, you could just come back to resting on your side, nice and easy. And then from here, use your top arm to initiate your lift up, and then get the bottom arm in. So you're really using your arms to support you. And in a moment, we're pretty soon we're going to come into Shavasana, but I had a few other, not a few, some additional movements to do on the back. So make sure you have around you anything you want to have for deep relaxation. So get that all set up. If you want a blanket under your head, if excuse me, if you want to have a blanket to cover you, get all that nearby so you don't have to get up again. And also, if you have one, grab a strap or a tie. Now, if you'd like to come right into Shavasana right now, you can certainly do that. You don't have to do these last parts, but this is just a little additional stretching, mostly for the hip here. We did a lot for the arms in the beginning of class. So when you're ready, just come to lying down, bend your knees, place your feet down. Again, if you want to, if you're like, nah, I want my Shavasana and I want it now, you can come right there. Otherwise, you're going to follow along with these last few movements. Keep your left foot down. Get a hold of your strap. Strap the right foot and stretch the leg out in front of you, not on the floor, but set it out low and long. Get the knee straight, or as straight as you can get it, and then slowly start dragging the leg up toward vertical. The knee starts to bend, keep the leg a little lower. So the goal for this particular variation of this stretch is to keep the leg straight. Doesn't have to be vertical, but we want the leg straight. So first we're going to enjoy that, hopefully enjoy it. So with the toes and the knees looking behind you, you're going to feel more of a stretch probably in the back of that leg, right? So now, without reaching your leg, we're not reaching it over to the side. That's a just different move. Flex your ankle and take a small outward turn of the leg. So when you do that, the stretch in the back of the leg, you might feel it now a little bit in the side of your leg and even in your hip. Turn the toes back to look to the wall behind you. If you need to lower the leg if it's more comfortable. Take a small spin of the leg out to the right, not your biggest spin, small external rotation. So the knee and toes are looking a little bit to the right. And then bring the leg back to the first position, just the leg just reaching up. Flex the ankle, take one more turn out of the leg, small turn out. Draw the pinky toe side of your foot down to your outer hip. If you're using a strap, you could even do a little tug on the strap to guide that into position. And now for one more piece, that's a great stretch for the hip. Keep the right leg externally rotated, but stretch it a teeny bit toward the left. At the same time, you can tip your left knee to the midline as well. So as if the knees are coming toward the midline. Yowza, that's a heck of a stretch in the outer hip. Make sure it doesn't overdo. If that's a tight place for you, you might feel, okay, that's pretty big. And then release that, point the toes to the wall behind you, release the strap, bend the knee, place the foot down, and let's come right to the second side, strap the left foot, right foot bent on the floor, stretch the leg out low and long, and then you can start reaching the leg up in increments so you find a comfortable stretch with the knee straight. So you could be out here, or you could be up here, or anywhere in between. Flex the ankle and notice if you feel a nice stretch in the back of your leg. We don't want to feel stretch or sensation in the back of the knee. That would not be so nice. Now, from here, keeping the ankle flexed, spin the leg, your left leg out slightly, toes and knee looking a little bit toward the left. And then bring the toes and knee back to where they were. Straight leg looking at your knee. And then take that small external spinning. So you're spinning the leg, spinning the hip in the leg joint in the hip socket to the left. And then bring it back to neutral. And then spin the leg out just a fraction. Notice if the stretch in the back of your leg is now more in your outer leg than hip. You can stay right here, or you could add the next and last piece to this little sequence. That would be stretching that leg toward the midline and tipping your right knee toward the midline as well, just a little. So the knees are kind of coming in toward the midline to help stretch the outer hips. And hopefully that feels nice. And then release that, remove the strap, bend the knee. If you like, draw both legs into your chest. If that feels good, you can circle your knees a little bit if that feels even better. Small circles, any calming, gentle movement that you like to do. And then when you're ready, prepare for deep relaxation. So hopefully you've gathered some props and maybe your favorite furry friend, and come to a comfortable lying down position. Your legs could be straight or your knees could be bent, whichever feels better for you. Make sure you're covered, make sure you're cozy. Use whatever props you have available to be nice and comfortable. And then invite your body to surrender to gravity. Layer by layer, just like lasagna. So for those of you who didn't eat dinner before yoga, now try not to think about food because we want to relax first. So think of that back layer, the bottom layer, the back of your skull, the back of your back, the back of your hips, the back of your legs, and down to the backs of your feet, to your heels. Invite that to surrender to gravity. Take a breath there. And then maybe come up. We're not going to be really specific about the layers, but still more toward the back part of you. Take another layer of your muscles and your bones and invite them surrender down. And then little by little, layer by layer, surrender each layer to the one below it, ending up with the forehead and the front of the face softening down, the front of the neck softening down to the back of the neck, the chest softening down, the tops of the arms releasing down to the backs of the arms, the belly softening downward, the fronts of your hips softening down, the tops of your thighs weighted down toward the backs of your thighs, and your lower legs also surrendering downward bit by bit, layer by layer. Especially after a long day, it is so helpful for the body to take some time to rest. If you don't have time or a class to take, you could just do one or two of your favorite stretches and then take a little mini shavasana. You can do it before you have your dinner, or you can do it an hour before bedtime. But use your time here in class this evening to continue to let go wherever you can. Surrender to the stillness that you find in your body, in your heart, and in your mind. If something gurgles up in your body or in your mind, invite that gurgling to quiet down. Invite the chatter of the mind to quiet down, and give yourself a midweek gift of a few more moments of stillness. When you're ready, bring your awareness back to your breath and just let your awareness kind of follow your breath, going along for a free ride. Notice your inhale and your exhale. Notice the subtle movements of your body as you breathe. Maybe you might notice some of the things we looked at when we did our back bend, the rise and fall of the chest and the rise and the fall of the belly, the expansion of the side body, right to right and left to left on inhale. And then when you're ready to come out of this nice little cocoon of stillness, you may want to stretch or yawn or sigh, moving at your own pace. Bend your knees, anchor your feet to the mat very lightly, pause, and then ease over to your side. If you'd like to return to a seated position to conclude your practice this evening, do that. Just make sure your seat is a comfortable one. It does not have to be cross-legged. You can sit on a chair, you can sit on some padding. If you like, join your hands lightly palm to palm. Bow your head. Thank your body for all it offers you. Honor your heart for its goodness and treasure your spirit for its uniqueness. Namaste. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to join me this evening, and I hope you come to this class again. It's twice a month.